Welcome to the Flow Podcast, fearlessly leading our way. This podcast is a space dedicated to spotlighting the unfiltered voices of Black women in their unique leadership journeys. I am your host, Angela B. Harris. I'm an award-winning coach, speaker, author, and champion for Black women. Make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast to stay connected to our conversations. Let's get ready to flow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Flow Podcast, Fearlessly Leading Our Way. I am your host, Angela V. Harris. Today, I'm honored to have a guest who is very near and dear to my heart, Mrs. Alana Ward Robinson. Alana is an entrepreneur with significant experience increasing value in organizations with breakthrough solutions to support new and changing operating business models. In her corporate career, she has built successful business-aligned, high-performing tech organizations within publicly traded companies. She has held multiple senior executive level roles in organizations such as Pace Membership Warehouse, Horace Brewing Company, Sara Lee Hosiery, and at R.R. Donnelley. Alana is the president and CEO of Robinson Consulting Group, a management consulting firm which specializes in developing roadmaps to help organizations think strategically about technology investments and build operational capacity for growth. Alana is experienced in board governance of civic and not-for-profit organizations, including World Food Program HQ, Brighter Horizon Foundation, Girls Inc. of Chicago, and the Black Wealth Summit. She is also a founder and member of the Information Technology Senior Management Forum. Welcome to the show, Alana.
Hi there. Great to be here.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for being my guest. When I decided I wanted to start a podcast, I couldn't think of anyone better than you to be my first guest. So I'm truly honored to have you here.
Well, I'm just as honored. I was shocked when I read I had to read the email a couple times. So I said, wow, well, I'm honored. I'm honored to be especially to be on your podcast in general, as well as to be the first.
Well, I was just thinking, I think we met about 10 years ago, but I must say I've been a fangirl of yours from the moment that I met you because I had never seen a Black female CIO. And for the listeners, a CIO is a Chief Information Officer. And one of the things that I remember, you were named our interim CIO, and it was your first department meeting. And I can't remember exactly what you said, but I just remember the sincerity in your remarks, and you shared your cell phone number with everyone. And I knew from that moment you were a different type of leader.
Yep. Got to connect with people in some way that makes everybody comfortable.
And you did.
Yeah, that cell phone number is a common thread, something that we all have. Yes.
And I'm so glad you said comfortable because like that meeting just really left a lasting impression. Like I definitely felt comfortable and I really felt at ease and definitely energized after that meeting. Like typically I've been to tons of meetings like that before, but like yours, I actually left energized and excited.
Good. Great. You never shared that part of the story with me before. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm also going to share some other, I guess, like fun facts. So I also remember there was another time when you were interim CIO. The building was closing early due to a snowstorm, and you were walking around to all the floors and all the conference rooms to make sure everyone heard the news. And again, I feel like no leader has ever done that before.
Yeah. Well, I'm a people person. There is no business without the people, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to connect with the people is what make the wheels turn and produce the results. And so there's no such thing as being a leader that's not connected with the people.
And you definitely always did a great job of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I also remember there was a project that I was working on at the time, and it required me to get CIO sign off to go live. And in my mind, I was telling myself that I wanted to use that opportunity as a as a way to ask you for an informational interview. So I made sure that I was prepared for the meeting. I had all my documentation lined up. And as we're going through everything, I remember you paused and you asked me, "What are your plans?" And I knew that you weren't talking about the project in that moment. You wanted to know what my career plans were. And that was my opportunity to ask you for the informational interview, which you graciously agreed to do. But I share that because you were the first leader to take an interest in my career development. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. And you've done such a wonderful job, way beyond my imagination since that first interview. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Elena. All right, I want to start by diving into your early experiences. I've always thought you were a trailblazer and a unicorn, and I know you were raised in segregated Louisiana. And after the freedom of choice law passed, you made the decision to attend the majority white school in your town to get a better education. Tell us about that.
And I'll correct one thing. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a better education. It was just a different education. I grew up on my side of the tracks, and I never really had a new book until we went to school on the other side of the tracks. The chemistry lab at that school was just very different than the chemistry lab on our side of the tracks. So it was an opportunity to be a trailblazer. It was 1968 when we were allowed to go to school across the tracks. And so there were 5 friends of mine and I, the 6 of us went to school at Jennings High School. And it was indeed a different experience. It was the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated. So being in that majority environment presented a number of challenges, but I also flourished in that environment. I was able to take advantage of the resources and the assets that I was exposed to that perhaps I would not have gotten had I stayed at home base, or I got an opportunity to even be an early admission student at University of Southwest Louisiana after my junior year at that school, which were some opportunities that we weren't even aware of before. So that resulted in me starting my freshman year at Grambling with a full semester of college credit.
Wow.
So certainly there were advantages to doing that. It didn't feel lonely because at the end of the day, I still went back to home base. My junior year, I rode the bus to school every morning, and I always had a seat to myself. Um, and did that because no one would sit with me. But again, I'm a half full person, so I thought, gosh, I got a lot of space. I didn't really feel bad about the fact that no, but I just kind of made that observation one day. I said, God, I wonder why the bus is crowded. There's people standing up, but I'm in a seat all by myself. And then I thought, well, gosh, I've got a lot of space. And so it was a long bus ride from where I lived to where the school was. So I
Mhm.
just took advantage of the convenience.
Okay. I know you attended Grambling State University and you studied applied mathematics and computer science. What led you to pursue technology as a career path?
Well, in my junior year, that first year when I went to an early admissions program at University of Southwest Louisiana, that was my first computer course. So I learned programming even before I left high school in the summer of '68. And then after I graduated in '69, I went back to USL as just a summer program before I started the fall in Grambling, and I took a second computer course. So the first year I was at Grambling was the first year that Grambling offered a computer science major. So, of course, that piqued my interest. Math was always my strength. So, being able to have a double major in applied mathematics and computer science was just something that just felt naturally into what I enjoyed.
Wow.
Mhm,
I know after college, you started your career with IBM and you were the first woman of color in the programming department.
mhm.
And prior to you joining, only women had been secretaries, and you couldn't work on certain accounts because Black people weren't allowed. How did you navigate all that?
Well, I've always felt my dad always taught me that you never and Tina Turner always said this as well, you never let other people put limits on your life. So if you get a break, if the peephole does open wide enough for you to see through, you got to go all in. right? So when I got the opportunity in Shreveport, the Shreveport branch office, I was the only woman in a non-secretarial role in that office, and the first Black woman that they had hired in that office. Um, but I was also well received, and I was taken care. It was like I didn't have to come shrink wrap to learn, to be exposed to people who let me learn. However, in the beginning, during those days, we did key punching with 80 column cards. And I realized, even though I had learned programming languages in high school and in college, when I got there, I found that for the first few months, I was just doing key punching. So I, shared with my boss that I really could do more. I really could program, and I really could handle more complex work. And so then they began to trust me with a little work and a little programming and a little programming, a little more to the point where I was able to earn the right to have my own accounts, as
Okay.
opposed to being the apprentice to others who were more experienced in the office.
Okay. So
But
self-advocacy was key for you.
absolutely, absolutely. And but that was the first job I'd ever had. My dad didn't believe I should work while I was in college. So I didn't have work experience. I didn't know what a time card was. When I filled out my paperwork, I didn't know what signing up for stock was. So it was very green in the environment. But in that environment, I was able to, my greenness and my naivete and my unfamiliarity didn't seem to be a limiter for me. There were people there who genuinely thought, oh God, she needs help. And so, and they genuinely gave me help. And so as I received the help, I just was able to build on that over time and do fine.
Okay. Okay. I
Mhm.
also read that you were an equal pay pioneer. You fought for an equal wage after learning that men in the same position were making more money. And I remember reading last year when the equal pay data came out that it said it will take 100 years for Black women to reach pay equity. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I'm a firm believer in equal pay. Um, not even not even just equity. I mean, I want the same pay. Um, I don't want to be within the range. And um, coming from having no job to now having the IBM income that I had, and then with my husband's income, I mean, we had more money. We were just making $1,200 a month between the two of us, but that was so much more money than we'd ever had before. um, we created a life within what we earned. So I had this, again, naive view that I'm paying my bills, I'm not desperate for money, so I must be making enough. And then as I traveled with my peers who were all male, um, we did traveling, especially when I got promoted to Dallas, and I was a traveling instructor. And as we would travel to different cities to teach, while you're over dinner, then people got more relaxed and they started talking about how much they made. And then I thought, well, gosh, I don't make near that much money. And we're teaching the same classes and we're doing the same work. And um, some of them had a little bit more experience with me, but it wasn't that much more. And the effectiveness of our teaching delivery was the same and dependent on all of us, not just them and not me. So that kind of opened my eyes to maybe I shouldn't settle for what I make because I can manage my life within what I make. But I
Mhm.
really should be more conscious about, am I really earning the amount of money for the work that I do? Right. And so they recognized my naivete, and then they were shocked to learn that I made so much less than they did, that they started to coach me on how to go ask for more money. Okay. And then I had some angels who I had worked with along the years who worked in higher positions, that I was able to share that reality with them. And then from a different angle, they came in and the bird landed, and they were able to challenge my boss about how much or how little I made compared to my peers. And so then the one day I was sitting in my cube, and the boss came in and he says, "Hey, I just want to announce to you, got some great news." And I said, "What's that?" He says, "Well, you're going to get a 17% increase."
Wow.
And so I said, "Well, okay, thank you." He said, "What do you mean just thank you?" He said, "That's significant. You're probably never going to get another 17% raise." I said, "Well, yeah, you're probably right. But what I'll recognize if I ever get another 17% raise, that means I'm that far behind the curve again." Right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I get the 2 to 3%, 5% to stay within the pack, then I'll at least know that I'm within the pack and that I'm not so far behind yelling at other people who do the same work but make so much more than I do.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
That's a great segue to the next question I wanted to touch on. I know you spent 18 years at IBM. What, and you talked about angels. So what role did mentorship and sponsorship play in your career advancement?
Oh, made all the difference in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and again, I had mentors and sponsors. I had people who could show me a different way, even on how to behave. We'd go, like when I was with one systems engineer on my team, older white man, and we went to a client in Texarkana, Texas. And so we had worked with the client that morning. We went to lunch. Well, we went to a restaurant that he always went to, but then they came to tell him that they couldn't serve me. So then we had to leave the restaurant. Um, and then it was an eye-opening lesson for him because he just did it naturally because that was where he always went to lunch. And when he realized he couldn't go there because of me, it was a rude awakening for him. And all the way back to driving to Shreveport, we got to talk about it. And so um, it was not a surprise to me because it was normal in Louisiana to not be able to go places, right? I grew
Mm-hmm.
up on my side of the track. But for him, that was different. And so we got to talk about that. And then he actually became one of those father figures for me as we navigated on which accounts I could go to and which ones I couldn't go to. Or if I'm even in the ones I could go to, if I met up with somebody who was a little obstinate and wouldn't deal with me, again, how to navigate that and how to communicate that back into the office so that they could make adjustments.
Okay. How did you form those relationships with your mentors and sponsors?
Well, I say two things, and this might be a bit braggadocious, but I'm a kind person, so I attract people with my kindness,
Mm-hmm.
and I work hard. I have a very significant work ethic, um, and so people recognize, oh gosh, she's easy to be around, and she really works hard, and she's focused on getting work done, right? And those characteristics have, in my mind, attracted people to either give me more work, give me different opportunities, give me more opportunities, or feel comfortable to introduce me to others.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, the like, know, and trust factor.
Yes, yeah. I just because being kind, I come out of the box kind. I can be ugly if I had to, but I come out of the box with the intent to be kind and to be
Mm-hmm.
considerate and to be have grace. Sometimes that most times that work, and there are those occasions where that doesn't work in my favor. But that's
Okay.
that's how I come out of the box. And then working hard is just what I do. And that's why entrepreneurship life works for me because it's a 24/7 job, right? And it's
Yes.
right. So I don't have to worry about getting paid extra. I just need to work and I need to get things done, right? And I don't have a team of 1,000 people. It's just the few of us, right? But we get a lot of work done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I know there's research that shows that Black professionals face a double broken rung, which is the inability to move from entry-level roles to manager roles and from manager roles to above. And I remember one of our talks when you shared a story about your father telling you that you had to learn to navigate around the alligators.
Mhm.
How can Black women navigate around the barriers that they face in the workplace to make that first step to manager?
I think the um The thing that I learned, not I didn't come to the to party with, but what I learned over time is you got to be able to discern when the alligators coming your way. And you definitely got to be able to react when you get bit by an alligator. And you've got to learn the resilience of, in the midst of a face off with an alligator, how you have the courage to face off with an alligator, and how you manage your life so that you don't have to tolerate the negative behavior of an alligator because you need your job, or you're not going
Mm-hmm.
to eat tomorrow if you don't keep your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you create this this air of freedom around yourself, like I can eat tomorrow whether I have this job or not,
Okay.
right? And with that level of independence, it allows you to be more free to, first you got to recognize you have a problem. You got to recognize the alligator's coming along. And if it smells like an alligator, it is one. Um, I'm Creole, so I'm believing alligators, not not ducks, but I'm in the alligators. All right. So if it smells like an alligator, it is one. And so you can't be naive or unconscious about trouble on the way. And then as I got older, I learned to nip it in the bud right away, or definitely confront it, not tolerate it. I didn't
Okay.
start my work life that way, but that's what I've learned over time as I matured in the workplace.
Confront, not tolerate. I like that.
Yes, yes. Yeah, whatever, and be ready to deal with the consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And be ready to deal with the consequence. If I'm a young Black woman and I'm trying to navigate through the walls of corporate, and I'm trying to not only get noticed for the work that I do, but also to be heard about what my dreams are, right? Both of those, then I got to be around the right people who will help me to both showcase what I'm capable of, but also hit somebody on the shoulder or be that sponsor and make that next
Mm-hmm.
move for me. You got to
Yeah,
have both of those.
yeah, people say
Otherwise,
you're you
you're in a no-win situation if you don't take charge of that.
right, right. So what I heard from that, like people always say your network is your net worth, and
Right.
networking is really key, and those personal relationships really determine a lot.
Yeah, and I think networking makes it it's like peanut butter. I think it's developing some, I mean, I can even think in my head, I don't remember all the names, but I can count the sponsors that I've had, even though I know lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's still, just of all the thousands of people that you meet, there's still that handful that will speak on your behalf, who will talk about you when you're not in the room, who will tap somebody else on the shoulder and say, hey, you need to know her. It's There's just still a handful. So you got, of the thousands of people, business cards that you get, you still gotta get to the point where you know not only who's nice to you in response to your kindness, but who has the courage and the audacity to make something happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that crowd gets smaller when you come to that.
Yes. Yeah. You said that being a first and only wasn't an issue for you and that you look for opportunities in negative situations. What advice do you have for Black women today who are still in spaces where they are the first and the only?
Yeah, which is so sad, but it's real. Um, Again, I've seen it happen multiple ways. I've seen young Black women who are highly talented, who work their butts off, but people just feed them like Mikey, and they give them more work, but they still won't give them the reward,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you still need to work really hard, but if you're not getting rewarded, if that cycle of work reward doesn't happen for you, you need to move on. I stayed 18 years with IBM. A lot of people aren't doing that anymore, staying in any one place 18 years. So I'm an advocate in this stage of my life. If it doesn't work for you, you need to move on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you need to have that building block of your own career of, I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to learn this and I'm going to work really hard. And my reward is going to be, I'm going to reward myself to go work somewhere else and make some more money. And I'm going to build that ladder on my own in my own and plod my own path, even if it doesn't happen all within one company. Every job I got at IBM over those 18 years, I didn't have the experience for the job I was going to, because there was still a career model of line staff, line staff. You work in the field, you go work on staff, you work in the field, you go work on staff, and you got incrementally more responsibility and moved up the ladder, but that was orchestrated for me.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't necessarily me demanding that I get this or that, right? The workplace is not really designed like that much anymore, especially not in medium to small size companies. Maybe in big companies, they still may have an orchestrated career ladder, but oftentimes we're not included in that discussion at all,
Yes.
right? So that's another challenge. But
Mm-hmm.
but I still can, if I have this dream that I want to be a CIO, and I become a student of understanding, take two or three CIOs that I see up at the top of the pyramid that I want to be like. And I study their LinkedIn profiles and see the trajectory and the path that they took to get to that point. Then I can design my own art piece to say, how do I find these opportunities? And they may not necessarily be in the same company.
Mm-hmm.
And it especially shouldn't be hard to the point where you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall and working and nobody's listening to you. They're not listening to your dreams. They're not rewarding you for the work you do. If neither of those two things matter and it's just work, it's not worth your time to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
So what I hear is you have to be your own career architect, and like you said, move on if it's not working for you.
And don't look back. You say, I'll see you in the rearview mirror. Oh, God. I'll see you in the rearview mirror. Keep it moving, and
Yes.
don't second guess your choices. And I remember when I left Coors to go work at Sara Lee, the CEO that I worked for at the time told me, he says, you're making a mistake. He said, it's a hard place to work. It's a hard place to work. But I didn't see that because I was going to work for significantly more money. Um, at that time, SAP was very popular. And so at Coors, I was just doing SAP finance. This was an opportunity for me to do SAP across the whole enterprise. And so intellectually, it was very challenging. It was significantly more money. And I didn't hear my boss with that in my ear telling me that it was going to be tough, and Lord knows it was tough. It was tough. But I got through it and I learned a lot with a lot of pain, but I got through it. But I didn't look back, and I still think it was a good thing to do. So I didn't second guess my decision. I just worked through it.
Yeah. I always say that there are no wasted experiences. I feel like it all comes together at some point, and there's always something to be learned from those experiences.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, we don't lose, we learn. So just make sure you build up that muscle of resilience, and you just kind of work through it, and just make it work. And you don't look back. You don't look back.
How did your early career experiences shape your approach to leadership?
Again, I reflect on how naive and inexperienced I was when I started my career at IBM. And were it not for angels, I would not have survived that environment. You know, I would not have survived that environment. Today, I worry about young people starting a career, and everybody thinks you're supposed to come to the table shrink wrap. You're supposed to know everything. You're supposed to already have training. People don't have time to teach you, and you got to figure stuff out on your own. And I think that that's a tragedy because I think a lot of great talent gets missed in that kind of scenario. And so that's why I think you have to have career oriented relationships outside of your workplace so that you can stay aware of what's possible, even if it's not possible where you are at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So when you think about that, how important was it for you to be involved in professional organizations with individuals that look like you? I know you're involved with the ELC and ITSMS. So how important was that for you as
Oh,
you were navigating your career?
it was life changing. Um, Again, when just like you said earlier about I was one of the first Black CIOs that you had met. When I got to become a member in ELC, um, I'd never seen that many Black people in the C-suite. Okay.
Mm,
And again, we were a smaller organization at the time, so it was easy to get to know people. And Carl Williams, who's also the founder, the father of ITSMF, that's where I met Carl in ELC, you
okay.
know, and I had never seen, even being in a CIO role, I had never seen a CIO in such a large company like Amoco. Okay. So that was an aha moment for me as well. And grateful to have had the opportunity to tag on his coattail because he also was a gatherer of people. He cared about people and um, he cared about opening your eyes about what you have is good and big, but oh, the world is so much bigger than that, right? So don't necessarily get comfortable because you were a Black female CIO within the Sara Lee enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
But the world's bigger than that, you know. It's just like when I left IBM, we bled blue. My son was in 1981 when IBM came out with the PCs. It was the first year, when Apple flooded the schools with Macs, and I
Mm-hmm.
got called to the school, and I was like, "Oh God, what did he do today?" And he refused to use the Macs because he said his mom and dad worked at IBM, and if they didn't get IBMs, he could use it. I was like, "Oh, mercy." So my husband and I go to school at lunchtime that day, and we're sitting across the table, and I'm like, "Oh, buddy, you got to use these Macs. This is not." He said, "But that's disloyal." I said, "Oh, yeah, kind of is, but not really." So you have to, there are a lot of challenges about, when we did bleed blue. Our whole world was about our friends were IBM. Everything in our world was IBM. But what I learned over time was that God, the world's bigger than that. And there's what I can do within the IBM structure, but there's other things I can do if I go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So be open.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no one way to live your life, right? There's to me, there's the Bible and there's the law. Outside of those two things, you can have a lot of creativity within those two boxes.
I want to shift gears a bit. I know you started your company, Robinson Consulting Group, in 2004. What was the transition like from corporate employee to entrepreneur? How did you land your first client as a business owner?
Well, when we had been talking about becoming entrepreneurs, but we weren't organized and we didn't have a structure. And then I got laid off at R. Donnelley. And I did a couple of interviews, a couple of places. Then it was just the same old, same old. And it's like, gosh, I'm 55 years old and I don't want to start over in a new company. My husband and I have always been good stewards of the resources that we had. So we thought, God, we got a little money. Let's go build our own business. And both our boys had graduated from college. And so that's what we decided to do. And then we had, the whole shock of what it takes to become an entrepreneur. Like, um, just, well, what do we do? And what kind of business do we build? And so we started off, we owned some franchises. Um, that was not a good thing. And so we made our business as opposed to finding a client, right? We bought this franchise, we bought a model that actually the brand brought in clients, right? So that was one way to do things. Along the way, um, one of my mentors who was also R. Donnelly, became a CEO of a company in Boston and offered me the opportunity to become a consultant for him and on an SAP project. And so started that journey that lasted for 2 years. And that really was the pivot point for us shifting from being a franchise owner to a consulting company.
Okay.
And in that newer model, my husband, who's had a career in finance and administration, and with my IT background, we were able to build a business that had interim leadership either as a CIO or as a CFO, and then we focus on process engineering and operational effectiveness. And so that allows us to blend both our skill sets and the people on our team to help a business. We've done some large companies, but primarily we're small businesses or nonprofit, to help them to become more operationally efficient, both with business processes and with making the right choices within technology.
Okay.
And so this year will be 20 years
That's quite an accomplishment.
on our own, and quite proud of that. And again, don't look back, no regrets. We had bumps along the way, being an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, especially in our case where we don't have a product, we sell our service and our skill set. Projects start and stop, and sometimes it's feast and sometimes it's famine.
Hmm.
But how do you build the consistency so you last over that sustainable period of time is what we're most proud of.
Yes, I applaud you.
Yeah.
So I know you're married to your college sweetheart, and as you said, you also run your company together. What's that like?
It's just like we run our marriage, right? There's things he does and there's things I do, and then there's things we do together. What I do care about the most is that we value the same thing. And so our goals are the same. I don't add 2 plus 2 like he adds 2 plus 2, but we get 4, and
Okay.
that's what matters. Mm. And we've been able to make it work.
I know you wear so many hats. You're a wife, you're a mother, you're an entrepreneur, board member, and Momo. How do you manage it all?
Uh, what I've learned, no balance. I don't believe in that whole thing about work-life balance. I don't even think my life is balanced, let alone my work and my life. But if in anything, whatever I'm doing, I try to be in the moment and I'm focused in the moment. When
Mm,
I'm doing my work, I'm focused on being that professional. When I'm having a discussion with my husband about our budget, then I'm focused on that. When I'm with my grandchildren, my G babies, as I call them, I am focused on being the best grandmother they've ever seen. So I've just learned to compartmentalize my activity, as I would call it, and whatever I'm doing in that moment, I just try to stay focused on that,
okay. Be present.
be present. Mhm.
What have been some of the guiding principles that you've used as you've navigated your career?
Um, One is be kind. One is even when I'm nervous, uh, to recognize it but stay focused. Um, my faith plays a big role because when the alligators come around and it feels like it's bigger than me, I dig
Hmm.
into my faith.
Mm,
to help me be calm enough so that I can not panic and get to a different place from the alligators. Um, and then just to work. If I stay focused on the work, even if I don't get the reward that I thought I should have gotten, I um I stay centered on what I've learned.
mhm.
Yeah. Those are just some things. That is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, yeah, that was helpful. Be kind, stay focused, dig into your faith, and stay focused on the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 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 And sometimes you see other people's behavior and you go, ugh, it's not something I would do. Um, and what I learned to do over time as I matured was to kind of call people out on their behavior, like
Mhm.
it wasn't necessary. Or there could have been another way you could have handled such and such. Or I see what you're doing, probably not cool. Um, so you get over time, you get the courage to kind of, even if it's not something you do, you can call out other people so it doesn't hurt somebody else.
Mhm. I saw a news headline recently that said the workplace is killing Black women. What words of encouragement did you have for Black women in corporate America today?
I think that's an extreme statement. I know a lot of flourishing Black women in the workplace.
Mhm.
Um, I also know a lot of Black women who have become impatient with the
Mm,
corporate workplace and they've created their own um, kingdoms. You know, even with my little company, I'm not a GE or American Express or, one of these other big companies, but in the little world that I've created, I feel very powerful. So sometimes you have to get grounded in, am I judging myself against the big behemoth or am I judging myself and proud about what I created? And find peace in and pride in what you create, even if that doesn't end up being the leader in some behemoth, big size company. So your joy can come from a variety of ways. Your joy doesn't necessarily just have to be defined because you work for a multi-billion-dollar company and you became the number one or number two in charge, right?
mhm,
Um, it's no different than our ancestors who worked in the field, where some could work inside the house and some had to work in the field, but you found ways to find joy and peace and still feel satisfied in your production. To me, our life now has some of the same characteristics. Certainly doesn't take away from our ancestors, but they found a way to still make progress, still survive, still be creative, sing themselves some joy and peace. You know,
mhm,
they still found a layer of being okay with themselves and their life. And if they could create a break for somebody else in the field, they did. I, I don't see life for us any different than that. And we still have to, just because we get a big job title and just because we make a lot of money and just because it doesn't necessarily mean it's sustainable even, right?
right.
So you still have to be in charge to say, there's so many examples of people who got a big job and it wasn't sustainable. And so then they had to redefine their lives again. So, but the life I created in my little bitty company is is what I'm most proud of. I don't even remember some of the job titles I've had, but
Mm,
I have pride in what I've created.
mhm.
That's how I'm going out like that.
And
Yeah.
that's priceless.
Yes. Yeah. So some of the things when we get down, when we get down on ourselves because I didn't get to be the CIO of company XYZ or I didn't get to be the director of cybersecurity at such and such, go build you a cybersecurity company. You know, go work for a Black-owned cybersecurity company. Still you can find joy and peace and pride in other spaces besides what society says that I'm not successful unless I work at some great big behemoth company.
Yeah, that's true. We tend to define our success by our salaries and our job titles, but at the end of the day, we're really individuals first. That's
Yes,
something that's never going to be taken away from us is our individuality.
that's right. And what you know and what you feel, right?
Hmm.
It's yours. And um, so I don't let other people kill my joy. Um, I might get irritated when I see an alligator, but I've learned to deal with alligators and I've learned to move on. But I don't let other people define what I'm going to be happy about.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about leadership?
That it's a hierarchical thing, hierarchical only thing. Like just
Hmm.
because I'm a leader, that I lead, you follow, I tell, you do. I am, you want to be. It's really not. Some people fall into that conundrum of thinking that it's a what something is versus what something is not, as opposed to from the bottom up, it's I'm willing to uh they say like get bugs in my teeth for the
Hmm.
broader group, right? I'm willing to be the air cover for the broader group. A lot of people don't have courage. They don't manage themselves, let alone can manage others, right? But if
Hmm.
I'm willing to take that leap and not only manage up, but manage broad and wide. And everybody doesn't have that capacity to do that. But when I do get to lead a group of 10 or a group of 1,000 or a group of 100,000, whatever my scope is, that I know my responsibility is to build and to connect and to grow and to become a champion with whatever size team I have, you know, and you don't get to be a champion just because you're the leader. You get to be the champion because you're a great coach,
Hmm.
and you're a coach with feelings, and you're a coach that cares, and you're a coach that can think on a broader level and know how to connect and put the puzzle together so that whatever way the puzzle comes out, you got a winning team.
Hmm.
And if you're not focused on that, you're just worried about the job title and the money that I have, then to me, you're not a leader.
Hmm. That's powerful.
No, you're not. You're just a person with a big job title and you make money, but not.
Hmm. And it goes back to what you said earlier about it's people first.
Yes, yeah. If people aren't first on your agenda, and it's all about you and your title and what you make, or you got your nose up your boss's butt, and that's all you really care about. You're looking forward and not behind you and around you, and figuring out how to keep, have that strategic view of the landscape and how do I plug and play in here to create a winning team, then to me, that's what leadership is. Yeah.
Your involvement with your alma mater, Grambling State University, and organizations like Girls Inc. and the Black Wealth Summit reflects a commitment to giving back. How important is it for leaders to be actively involved in philanthropy, and what impact do you think it has on their leadership style?
Mm, I actually think that's such a personal thing, and I think it's got to be in your DNA
Hmm.
because I can write a check, but more important again than my check is what impact have I had, right? And so if you're not focused on the impact to the people, to the recipients, then it's just a very impersonal philanthropy writing checks, right? For me, um, being a part of being able to trans transpose my work ethic, my kindness, my compassion to a an audience outside of my work life where I feel like what I'm getting back is fulfillment. I'm not getting a check. What I do at work, I do work and I get a check. When I do, when I give and I care and I can offer technology advice, or I can offer a financial perspective to a group, and I see the impact through the product, through the girls, in this case,
Mm-hmm.
with these organizations, or through ITSMF, or through the Blackwell Summit that we did. I feel like I'm focused on impact,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what I get paid back is the fulfillment, which makes me want to do more, right? I always call it a
Mm-hmm.
cycle of the more I get, the more I give, the more I give, the more I get. You know, it
Mm,
becomes that
wow.
other kind of becomes that other kind of cycle. It's a whole nother level of fulfillment, different than when I have a contract with a client and I do the work and they pay me. It's just a very different, just two different kinds of transactions. So I think if a leader, if I don't, if I all I do is work and get paid and I just do transactions and I'm not focused on fulfillment because I only care about myself, then leader kind of doesn't fit either one of those either.
That really resonates with me because when I look at some of the external organizations that I've been involved with and still, remain involved with, I definitely get that fulfillment from
Mhm.
those organizations, and it doesn't feel like work because I'm so full from the work that I'm doing. So that definitely resonates with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to me, one is fulfillment. The reward is in fulfillment, or with my business, it's a satisfied client that writes a check.
I know self-care is an important part of leadership that is sometimes overlooked. What do you do to recharge when you aren't fearlessly leading?
Um, Connect with my grandchildren. Um, my grandchildren, of course, I love my sons, but I really love my grandchildren. So I their innocence and their distinctiveness challenges me in a way that I could never have imagined having those kind of relationships. Um, the what they're exposed to in terms of awareness, they won't nearly be as naive as I was going into the workplace because they have access to far more information than I ever dreamed of as a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 19-year-old, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
um ho- I'm fascinated by how they do how they do process what they're exposed to, and I'm fascinated by how they derive insights from that. Um, so that's what I seek for, actually perspective.
Okay.
Mhm. And I play wordscapes on my phone.
Okay.
I spend way too much time doing that. Mhm.
Last question. How can our listeners stay connected with you?
Well, my website is www.one-rgc.com, and I'm available at info@one-rgc.com. My number, you'll see on my website, is 312-847-7147.
Well, Elena, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I want to give you your flowers and just thank you again for pouring into me all these years. And I would not be where I am today if it were not for you. And I'm truly grateful.
Well, I'm ultra proud of you, ultra proud of you. So proud of you for so many reasons. And from our very first conversations over lunch to through the years, and that's also fulfilling when because a lot of people call for help and for advice, but you never hear back from them. Having that sustained relationship where you saw a person at one point and you see how many points further they have gotten with your engagement is also very rewarding and fulfilling as well. And you're one of those, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And to our listeners, I hope you all enjoyed this conversation as much as I did and that you are walking away feeling inspired to keep going.
All righty.
Are you ready to step into your power and play big in your life and career? Enrollment is now open for my upcoming Playing Big group coaching program starting on March 20th, 2024. If you're a Black woman in tech looking to unlock your full potential, this program is designed just for you. Join me in a group of like minded women on a transformational journey to discover your strengths, overcome obstacles, and achieve your biggest goals. Don't miss out on this opportunity to invest in yourself and take your career to the next level. Book a discovery call to learn more and secure your spot. Visit bit.ly/playbigwithangela. Thank you for listening to the Flow Podcast. As we wrap up today's episode, always remember your unique path, your voice, and your leadership matter. If you loved what you heard, subscribe now to stay updated on our latest episodes. Take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with someone who can benefit from these conversations. You can stay connected with me on Instagram at the Flow Podcast with Angela, or visit me on the web at angelavharris.com. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and keep fearlessly leading in your own way.